Selvä.
So, good afternoon everyone and welcome to this joint press conference of Finland's Minister of Defence, Mr. Antti Kaikkonen, and the UK's Secretary of State for Defence, Mr. Ben Wallace. First, Minister will give short remarks and after that we have time for questions. So, Minister Kaikkonen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much and welcome here. I give a short statement both in Finnish and in English, and then my good colleague Ben Wallace will go on. And if you have some questions, we have some time for that also. But I'd say we've had a good afternoon today here in Niinisalo. We've met our troops, get to know the exercise here, and I think it seemed good. And after this, we are going back to Helsinki and we have a bilateral meeting with my colleague Ben Wallace there. Mutta hyvät lehdistön edustajat, some words in Finnish. Hyvät lehdistön edustajat, Arrow-harjoitus on jo vuosien ajan ollut yksi maavoimien tärkeimmistä monikansallisista harjoituksista. Tämä on ollut yksi maavoimien tärkeimmistä monikansallisista harjoituksista. Ulkomaalaisten joukkojen maahantulo käynnistyi jo pääsiäisenä ensimmäisten brittijoukkojen saavuttua merikuljetuksilla Suomeen. Harjoitus on tärkeä yhteistoimintakyvyn kehittämisen, mutta myös kansainvälisen avun vastaanottamisen ja isäntämaatuen harjoittelun sekä logistiikan näkökulmista. Minulla oli ilo ja kunnia seurata harjoitusjoukkojen toimintaa puolustusministeri Ben Wallacen kanssa. Joukot osoittivat erittäin vahvaa osaamista, motivaatiota ja hyvää yhteishenkeä. Haluankin osoittaa kiitokseni sekä suomalaisille, brittiläisille että muille kansainvälisille joukoille erinomaista panoksesta tärkeän harjoitustapahtuman toteuttamisessa. Yhteistyömme merkitys korostuu Euroopan haastavassa turvallisuustilanteessa. Arrow-harjoitus on samalla tärkeä osa Suomen ja Iso-Britannian kahdenvälistä puolustusyhteistyötä, jota on kehitetty viime vuosina suunnitelmallisesti ja nousujohteisesti. Harjoitukseen liittyvät suunnittelu ja toteutus ovat osoitus yhteistyömme kehityksestä ja sotilaallisesta yhteistoimintakyvystämme. Iso-Britannia on Suomelle erittäin tärkeä kumppani kahdenvälisesti. Lisäksi JEF-maaryhmän yhteistyöllä on merkittävä rooli Suomen puolustusyhteistyön kokonaisuudessa. Suomen ja Iso-Britannian vahva puolustussuhde tukee Pohjois-Euroopan vakautta ja turvallisuutta, ja haluan kiittää kollegaani Ben Wallacea yhteistyömme vankkumattomasta tukemisesta ja edistämisestä sekä Iso-Britannian johtajuudesta Euroopan kohdatessa erittäin vakavia turvallisuushaasteita Venäjän hyökkäyksen johdosta. Yhdessä olemme vahvempia. Exercise Arrow has been one of the most important multinational exercises of our land forces for many years now. The first British troops arrived in Finland already during Easter time, and indeed the exercise is an important event to develop interoperability, but also to practice receiving international aid, host nation support, and complex military logistics. I had the privilege and joy to follow the exercise together with my close and dear colleague, Secretary of State for Defence, Ben Wallace. The troops participating in the exercise demonstrated very strong expertise, motivation and spirit. I would like to express my sincere appreciation for the Finnish, British and other international troops for their excellent input in the implementation of this important exercise event. The value of our cooperation cannot be highlighted enough as we face severe security challenges in Europe. The Arrow exercise is also an important part of Finnish-British bilateral defence cooperation, which has been developed with an upward trend during past years. The planning and execution related to this exercise is a showcase of the development of our cooperation and of our military interoperability. United Kingdom is a very important partner for Finland bilaterally, and in addition, JEF is a significant cooperation framework to Finland. Our strong defense relation supports the stability and security of Northern Europe, and I would like to use this opportunity to thank my colleague Ben Wallace for the staunch support for our cooperation and also for the United Kingdom's leadership as Europe is facing major security challenges due to Russia's illegal attack on Ukraine. Together we are stronger, and Finland is proud to have such a friend as the United Kingdom on its side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ati, and thank you for hosting me today here in lovely Finland. And I can't tell you that at times like this, fellow European countries who stand for freedom, human rights, respect for human rights, the rule of law, and open societies need to stick together. And underpinning all of that is the security that our armed forces deliver us all. You can only know how good they are when they exercise together, when they learn how to integrate, when they learn how to complement each other's strengths, because only by doing that can we send a strong message to those people who would threaten our way of life and the freedoms that we enjoy. I'm delighted yet again to be here in Finland and obviously to see our troops in action. It was great to go and not only meet the British troops here, but also the Finnish troops, and to look at some of their equipment as well, and to know that, first of all, they're all enjoying the exercise, which doesn't always happen, and I think also that they are having a great success in learning and improving their ability to fight. I think it's also great to see that there are 4 JEF nations here, plus the United States. And that demonstration of international alliances, really wrapped around the values we all share, is a really important message to Russia and to anyone else that would threaten us and our values. And I think, we have had a number of JEF exercises already this year. We had a JEF summit in the United Kingdom. We've got more to come, I think in Norway, is it, or soon. And I think we are doing an awful lot of work together. And, that alliance of the 10 JEF nations is really, really important, both at land and on sea. And it wasn't that long ago that both Ati and I were up in Norway on the cold response exercise, another multilateral, multinational exercise. So it's been a great visit. I'm delighted, and we'll go back down to Helsinki to have sort of more business discussions. But for any of you here, welcome to take questions. But what's brilliant is the professionalism of both armed forces working absolutely hand in hand here. I think they've even got an attack on as we speak, or about to start the next phase of the exercise. And, that is a really important lesson for all of our troops. And the stronger we are in our integration, the stronger we are in our defence. Thank you.
Thank you, Ministers. And now we have time for questions. And first, going there. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Nick Robinson from CNN. For both of you, what do you, and this is a potential for Finland potentially joining NATO, what would you see as the principal challenges for bringing Finland's forces in with NATO? And secondly, how do you see Russia's response so far to this current climate of potential integration?
Well, I think we have a very good interoperability with NATO, and I believe that Finland would fulfill the criteria needed to be a NATO member. And I believe that possible negotiations with NATO wouldn't take so much time because of that. And that's the same with Sweden also. If Sweden also decides to apply for membership in NATO, what takes time is the ratification process in the 30 NATO countries. Well, Russia has, on the other hand, said that it's Finland's own decision, but on the other hand also said that there would be some kind of reaction, and that is something which will be seen in the future if we decide to apply for the membership in NATO.
I certainly think on professional level between the armed forces, they're incredibly well matched, and in some areas, advanced in their equipment. I've just looked at some of the Finnish armoured infantry equipment, which is used by many NATO countries. So there is not in any way, in my view, a gulf at all, often level pegging, often some stronger than others. So I don't think that would be a barrier in any way. I think it would be for the military experts to judge exactly, but I don't think that is an issue at all. I think also the shared standard of training, the shared humanitarian rule of law training we all do, all of those things are important. And I can tell you from Jeff exercising, which includes Sweden and Finland, I don't think there's any issue there. I think Antti is right. It's really about the 30 nations and the speed of ratification. But it is ultimately open door policy, nations apply, and then those member states take a view on it. What Russia does, we've already seen its statements. Russia definitely seems to have a view that some countries have their sovereignty respected and others don't. I'm afraid we take a different view. Whether you're big or small, Britain stands for the freedom to choose. What you do with that choice is secondary, actually. Britain is supporting Ukraine not to become necessarily a member of NATO, to have the freedom to choose what it wants to do. And the Finnish president's statement back in New Year was a very powerful statement, and it's the sort of thing that is the statement Britain stands by.
Thank you, and Lauri Nurmi from Iltalehti.
Lauri Nurmi from newspaper Iltalehti, Finland. Western Defense Secretary Ben Wallace. To be honest, Finland will apply for NATO, and the President of Finland will announce that on the next week. So, what kind of security guarantees NATO and Britain can offer Finland during the ratification process? Not legally binding, but in practice, is it a public declaration that Britain will guarantee the security of Finland? And if Russia does a military operation against Finland during the ratification process, will the Britain send troops to help us? Thank you.
Well, first of all, I admire the fact you seem to know more about the Finnish government's future intentions than I do. So,
all right.
We in 2016 signed a declaration together, and the whole purpose of the JEF is binding us together around really European countries that share the same common values, with militaries of similar standards, being able to interoperate so we can help each other, both operating and exercising. And obviously different countries in the Nordics have a different view of operations versus exercising, and there's a nuance there in the sort of legal language. But look, it's inconceivable that Britain would not come to the support of Finland or Sweden if it was ever attacked, right? Without any big formal agreement, we are European countries who share the same values, who have deep, long histories. A significant number of the British population seem to be descendant from Vikings anyhow. So, we have that cultural link. It is, I cannot conceive a time when we wouldn't come to support Finland and Sweden, no matter where they were with the NATO debate or where they are with agreements. And I think that is what really binds us. Britain is very forward-leaning on Ukraine, a long way away from Britain, but fundamentally a country that has chosen to be European and embrace European values, and that's what triggers our support. So look, whatever happens on Finland's NATO ambitions, that is entirely for the freedom of Finland to choose, and we are here to support their freedom to choose and not allow some other nation to tell them what to do with that choice. And I think that's actually the most important freedom we can all enjoy. And I'm not going to be here to lobby or direct. That's entirely for your government and your people's choice. Do I think Finland would add to NATO? Yes. Do I think Finland has amazing capabilities that would help us all be better as an alliance? Yes. Do I think if Finland didn't join NATO, Britain wouldn't come along to help? No. Britain would always be here in the Nordics to be part of you, to help you, to support you. And if you think what we share in the maritime space in Norway, Britain and Norway have guarded that North Atlantic for years from Russian submarines, etc. We are always going to be side by side in lockstep. So formal agreements, discussions, that may all come, but and you may know about them before I do. But what I would certainly say is we have, in a sense, a link of values that actually underpins why we would always come to support Finland.
Thank you. was true when you were there? Thank you.
Well, I would like not so much as the defense minister speculate on the possible moves Russia might do. Finnish tanks close to Russian border today. If there is something in the news, that's fake news. That's not the reality. The tanks which are moving in Finland are in this region at the moment.
Look, well, I think Britain would do whatever it needs to support Finland and Sweden and other countries that are in this region. We would do whatever we need to do to support them. And I'm not going to speculate about specific measures, but one thing you know about Britain when it comes to defence is we do what we say, and we do stand by our friends and partners. We were some of the first countries in Poland when Belarus was, forcing migrants across the border. We sent 100 Royal Engineers to the Belarusian-Polish border to help the Poles. We are here, I think, for the first time with a tank squadron in Finland. Still, a non-NATO country in the heart of Nordics, but very near Russia. I mean, it's a big border with Russia. So we mean what we say. We were, the first European country on lethal aid into Ukraine. Some would have said at the time at risk, but our values are too important to shy away from. And standing with our friends is too important. So what those particular things, I don't think it helps to be specific other than to say we will do whatever we need to do to help protect and support Finland and other countries like Sweden.
Question for Mr. Kaikkonen. How important is to Finland is that UK or other NATO countries promise protection for Finland during application process? How important?
Would you like to have the answer in English or in Finnish?
English. Okay.
That's more difficult. I see it's important to hear such messages we just heard from my colleague Ben Wallace from UK and also from some other key partners, and if we decide to apply for the membership, we truly need friends now and in the near future also, and during the possible ratification process. So these kinds of messages we just heard are very much welcome.
Thank you. Adam Parsons from Sky News. A question for both of you. Mr. Kaikkonen, your country's people used to be very strongly against joining NATO. Now, very quickly, they are strongly in favour. Why did it take a war for them to change their mind? Do you think it was a mistake before not to look at the NATO option? And Mr. Wallace, you have 14 Challenger 2 tanks here, the biggest tanks in this exercise. Mr. Peter, Mr. Lavrov have been contemptuous about British military power. What message do you think they should take from this exercise?
To start.
I think when T-72s met British made NLAWs, there's the answer to Mr. Lavrov's observation and knowledge of his assessment of military capability. I wouldn't go by his views of military. British made NLAWs have helped decimate Russian T-72s. So, I think what we have learned from this is the so-called Russian military hardware is not really much worth the money they've paid for it across the board. They're currently being taken apart by cheap drones, poor leadership, and equipment that doesn't really work. So I think Mr. Lavrov should go to military school and learn, maybe, take a leaf out of the book on that one. So to do that. It's all about alliances, right? It's 14 tanks, it's not 100, right? But in our alliances of the JEF, there are 10 nations. In NATO, there are 30 nations. We achieve our mass through our alliances. And that's why these alliances are really important. So we're here with the Finns, the United States, the Latvians, the Estonians. We're all here, and that creates our mass. And it's the mass and the friendships and the many flags that are the real deterrent to people like Russia. It's not just attacking Finland, it's attacking Britain, it's attacking America, it's attacking Estonia and Latvia. That's actually the real message that we can send.
Well, the support from the Finnish people to the NATO membership, it has been very stable for decades indeed. Around 20% or so of the Finns have been supporting the NATO membership. But the Russian attack to Ukraine on 24th of February, it changed very much the security situation in Europe, and also it changed the attitudes of Finnish people and also the decision makers here. The former policy, it worked during those old good times, if I could say, but now the situation is different, and the Parliament of Finland is debating this issue at the moment, and of course the government of Finland, and we are coming closer to the time of conclusions in this issue, and it's pretty close, I'd say. I think it's time for conclusions is now in the coming weeks.
Thank you, and then there.
Kysymys Kaikkoselle. Jari Pelkonen Yleisradiosta. Tänään ilmoitettiin, että Venäjä ei Suomen ilmatilaa. Mikä on teidän kommenttinne siihen? Liittyykö se jotenkin tähän harjoitukseen tai tähän tapaukseen?
No meillä näitä harjoituksia ja tapaamisia on ollut aikaisemminkin, että vaikea nyt heti vetää sitä johtopäätöstä, että näin olisi, mutta vaikea sulkea poiskaan tietysti ihan vielä tässä vaiheessa. Mutta me suhtaudumme näihin ilmatilaloukkauksiin aina vakavasti ja ne tutkitaan ja Rajavartiolaitos on aloittanut tutkinnan tässä tapauksessa ja palataan tähän sitten, kun saadaan tästä vielä vähän tarkempaa tietoa ja on keskusteltu naapurin kanssa.
Kiitos.
Norway has been a member of NATO since 1949, and we are likely also a neighbor to Russia. Do you think you can learn anything from our experience, and if so, what?
Well, I believe we could learn from your experience because of the reasons you just mentioned, that you are a neighboring country to Russia and a Nordic country, and we have a lot of similarities between Finland and Norway, and Sweden as well. Actually, I'm going to talk with my Norwegian counterpart next week, and I believe that we will change the word about this issue also.
Thank you. And there.
Russia claims that these NATO tanks here in Niisa means that Finland is preparing to war. How do you comment that? And is there any other kind of information would be expected?
Well, these international exercises are normal part of our work, and every country exercises in Europe, and Russia does that as well. Well, this exercise has been accepted to our exercise program already last year. So this is just a normal part of our work. So that's my answer to this question.
Thank you, and we have time for a couple of more questions.
We exercise to keep our defense in shape. Well, I don't know exactly what has Russia said of this exercise, something exact, so it's difficult to comment more at this stage, sorry.
Russia is already trying to threaten Sweden and Finland if they're going to decide to join NATO. They already said they will bring back military balance if Finland and Sweden join NATO. They already say they're going to put weapons at borders. How do you react to that? Is that probably going to influence your decision about joining NATO?
Well, that might be a Russian reaction that they would invest more on their military forces in this part of Europe. And they have right, of course, to do that. But I wouldn't say that would change our attitudes here. And of course, are interested to see what happens, but I wouldn't say that has a big role in our consideration here.
Yes, from the News in Finland. I have a question for Mr. Wallace. If Finland was to apply for NATO, how long would it take for the President to approve the Finland's membership?
Well, as I've said, we will support Finland in whatever choice as a country you make. I mean, that is, the nature of the open door policy. If, of course, as I've said, would it add to NATO? Yes, it would. The actual speed, I think there's a foreign ministers meeting next week or the week after in NATO. I think that is obviously for the alliance to decide. I can't sit here and predict it. But certainly as a nation that is well exercised with NATO countries, it is in a prime pole position as a country, Finland, should it wish to join insofar as its capabilities, and then it becomes the ratification discussion. For the United Kingdom, we can ratify very quickly. We have a different constitution from some other countries, and I think that countries are all bound by their constitutions, and that takes different time. So I think that would be. I would like to predict it, unless, because I don't really know the ins and outs of every government system in NATO, but
Okay, thank you. And one more question, and after that, the minister have one-to-one interviews already. So there we go.
Question to Mr. Wallace. If Finland and Germany even join NATO, what does it mean? More trouble or more security?
Alliances mean security. That's what history shows. If you look at history where countries predominantly lost, it was when they didn't have friends and allies. Alliance means security. It's why I served in northern Germany in my time as a British soldier to help provide security for West Germany. That's why we were there, and to ward off the Soviet Union, and I think that's the answer to this. We are not in the business of doing these things to provoke other countries. We are in the business to respond to a much more aggressive current posture from Russia. That the point about Finland public opinion changing is directly linked to the predominantly strategic blunders of President Putin and aggression that we have seen, and it's about time many parts of Europe woke up to the fact that Putin is not a friend, he is an aggressor, and he has spent a lot of time and money over the last decade or two undermining both our democratic principles through misinformation, funding political parties of extreme, or indeed through military threats. He is not a friend of Western Europe, and it's about time a lot of people realise that, and therefore his response needs to be met, which we warned him would be, as it did in 2014. In 2014, when he invaded Crimea, and illegally, and Donetsk, he was warned he would get more defence spending in Europe, and he'd get more NATO forces on his borders, and that's exactly what he got. When I went to Moscow about 10 days before they invaded Ukraine, not just me, presidents and prime ministers warned President Putin that these actions would be counterproductive. He would likely see more defence spending and more NATO, and that is exactly what is happening. So if his strategic aim is less NATO on his borders, less challenge in military might, he's got it yet again completely wrong. And his latest example of strategic flaws was his Bulgarian exercise, where I think he switched off the gas, and Bulgaria has now decided that they're going to step up support for Ukraine. So I think the answer is alliances make us safer.
If I may just comment this, I'd say that Finland is the net contributor of security at the moment, and I believe as a stable country which has invested a lot in defense, I believe if we would become a member of NATO, we would be also a net contributor of security as a member of NATO as well.
Okay, thank you so much. And now ministers have already scheduled one-to-one interviews.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm not even sure that was on. Good, all right.
Okay.
Thank you. It's good. Good, all right.